Marc Rudov joins us as promised, branding advisor to CEOs. He's a media commentator and author of Brand is Destiny, the ultimate bottom line, which you can get on his website at marcrudov.com. It's MarcRudov.com. And Marc's joining us today to discuss how NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's tolerance of players disrespecting the national anthem and football fans is killing the NFL brand, and that's why it's happening. Marc predicted this outcome 17 months ago in his Newmax article about Colin Kaepernick, and of course you can follow him on Twitter. We do as well, and we'll put his it's Marc Rudov, can't mess that up. But also he'll talk about how Super Bowl commercials are a total waste of corporate capital, and if you follow him on Twitter, you're seeing a lot of that. Of course, the website, once again, marcrudov.com, MarcRudov. And Marc, how you doing today?
Great, Greg. How are you?
Well, I'm doing terrific, and let's talk about this NFL deal, because Super Bowl's right around the corner. We're also going to talk about how Super Bowl commercials are a total waste of corporate capital, but Roger Goodell and the owners, and they're all complicit in this deal. It all started with the kneeling, Colin Kaepernick and whatnot, and it's really turned most of America off. I think it's down cultural and racial divides sometimes, but I think the large part, everything's down for the NFL as far as viewership and ticket sales and all that, isn't it?
Yes, and what I would like to do is offer an analogy. Just think of a store in your neighborhood where when you go in there, the owner of the store insults you as you walk through the door and makes your experience so negative that you don't want to return. How many stores do you know would do that?
Not any in business anyway.
Right, I can't say, but that's exactly what the NFL has done. And we know why. We know it's because of political correctness and virtue signaling and race. And it is unlike any other business I can think of. And yet, the owners of the NFL have renewed Roger Goodell's contract for another 5 years. I believe he's getting upwards of $50 million a year, free private plane, health care for his whole family. Here's a guy who's the skipper of the Titanic, and he gets rewarded. And not only did he get rewarded, but the guy who started all of it, Kaepernick, got rewarded. And as you mentioned, I wrote an article at Newsmax.com 17 months ago predicting that this would happen. And what I said is that if Kaepernick has some kind of beef, which he really doesn't, it's all fake, he should take it off the field and hire his own press team, write a book, do whatever he wants to do on his own time and on his own nickel, but not use his employer's space and his employer's dime, because no other employee in America would be able to do this. In that article, I said that if somebody wanted to stage on the front lawn of corporate headquarters an anti-abortion rally, do you really think that the CEO would just say, oh, that's okay, no problem? No, that wouldn't happen. In fact, you do not have free speech in your workplace. The First Amendment only protects you from the government, not from your employer. There is no First Amendment right in your workplace. Now, what did Kaepernick get for all of this in 2017? Sports Illustrated gave him the Muhammad Ali Legacy Award. The ACLU gave him the Eason Monroe Courageous Advocate Award. And GQ magazine gave him the Citizen of the Year Award. All for staging what I think is self-aggrandizement. I mean, he did it for himself. Nobody really knows what his cause is, because what are the results? And what he said, by the way, and I pointed this out in the article about all of this aggression from cops, the fact of the matter is that blacks are more likely to kill cops than be killed by cops. You can find this from FBI statistics. And Heather McDonald wrote a great book called she's the author of The War on Cops. And she indicated that she got this from FBI data. The blacks are more likely to kill cops than be killed by cops. And black and Hispanic officers are more likely than white officers to fire a gun at blacks. And also, blacks are more likely to kill each other than to be killed by any other group. So his beef is completely false and fabricated.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. That was his thing, but this take a knee stance has so many different. I mean, I've asked people, that got with me on Twitter and calling me everything bad. It's like, what does take a knee mean to you? And if I ask 50 people, I get 50 different answers. It was so many different things. It's like, I woke up this morning in a bad mood, take a knee, kind of that thing.
Well, I guess the definition has changed, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It went from Colin Kaepernick's original stance.
Right. And now, and so what I said in my article, and people can write to me at marcrudov.com, and I will send them the link to that article. But what I said was that if Roger Goodell and the owner of the 49ers, Bud York, if he doesn't put the kibosh on this, it's going to spin out of control and also spill over into other sports. And so what you saw with kids doing it, it's out of control. And all because if you object to it, then you're a racist. And in fact, here's what racism is. Racism is not being able to be honest with a black person, not being honest enough to say, you're behaving in a way I don't like, I want you to stop it. If you can't have that conversation, and instead you coddle the person, then you're actually disrespecting the person. Because honesty is the greatest sign of respect. Honesty. And so Roger Goodell couldn't be honest. Most of the team owners, even Bob Kraft, which astounded me, couldn't be honest because 75% of NFL players are black. So they're afraid. If you're afraid of your own employees, what kind of business are you running?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I mean, again, go back to your store owners in town. Are they afraid of their employees? And this is what's happening on college campuses now. The administrators are afraid of the students. Any time something happens that the students don't like, any word in the English language that they now deem offensive, there's a mass riot, and the college administrators succumb to it. They buckle under, and they give their snowflakes whatever they want. So it's now part of the culture. We live in a protest culture. And it's because the grown-ups don't want to be grown-ups. They're afraid to be grown-ups. So we find this pervasively in the country. So the bottom line is, because I'm a branding expert, is that the NFL has soiled its own brand, sullied its own brand, and that's why viewership was down in 2017 and declining. You see a lot of games where the stands are half empty, and to my surprise, actually it shouldn't be a surprise, NBC, which is going to carry the Super Bowl, announced just the other day that if any players kneel during the national anthem, it will televise that. Now, this shouldn't be surprising because NBC is a very left-leaning network. It's owned by Comcast, which is a very left-leaning organization. And it's more virtue signaling, more political correctness. And political correctness will kill your brand. Again, it's illogical that people willingly are allowing their brand to suffer. And yes, you brought up the Super Bowl commercials, because I have a chapter in my book, Brand is Destiny, called Skip the Super Bowl. It's been proven over the years that Super Bowl commercials are a complete waste of money. Yet, the CEOs of the companies advertising the Super Bowl continue to pump out that money. Again, illogical. So I see that the two can be tied together in illogical CEO behavior. The NFL owners or CEOs, they're allowing their brand to crater and essentially re-electing the guy who's the skipper of the ship, the Titanic.
Mark, with the NFL allowing this, how much further can they go down? I mean, they've had the lowest ratings, and I mean, it's been ridiculous. Lowest ratings in many, many years. I don't know the exact number. You probably do, but
in 2006, Gallup follows this. In the 60s, NFL football. Well, it's actually football took over baseball as the most popular sport. And it's been that way ever since. But it reached its peak in the 2006, 2007 at 43%. 43% of people polled said that football is their favorite sport. It's now down to 37%.
Is that NFL football or football in general?
Well, it's just football in general.
Okay, I gotcha.
Recently, we're hearing that college football is surpassing NFL football in popularity. But the Gallup poll does not separate out NFL football. And baseball has declined to single digits for the first time. It's now at 9%.
Yeah, that's been going on pretty much during my lifetime. When it was the national pastime, is no longer, obviously.
But here's the real farce. That if everybody thinks that Roger Goodell cares about the players, he doesn't care about the players. I don't know. Other than himself, I don't know what he cares about. Because when Bennett Amalu, the medical examiner in Pittsburgh, my hometown, when he's the one who discovered CTE, who was the first one to try to drive him out of town, and actually did drive him out of town? Roger Goodell. He didn't want to hear about concussions and CTE. He didn't want to hear about it. And he was forced into it probably because of the movie Concussion, which was based on Bennett Amalu's whole discovery process. And so you would think that a guy who cares about players would immediately embrace it and want to look into it. Oh, my God, my players are suffering. They're dying. They're killing themselves. No, he did the opposite until he couldn't hide any longer. So that's not a guy who cares about players. And by thinking that he's allowing them to kneel because he cares about them, no, it's because he's afraid of them. There's a difference between caring and fear. And the bottom line result is still the bottom line result, which is he is offending his customers and driving them away. And the owners are complicit because they re-upped his contract. If they didn't approve of what he was doing, they would have bounced him out of the NFL. But they didn't. Again, I can't think of any other business where the owners intentionally offend their customers and drive them away.
Mark, what do you make of Jerry Jones? Seems to be the only guy out there that I've heard that basically said, if you work for the Dallas Cowboys, you're not going to kneel, and I'm not for this Roger Goodell re-signing at this amount of money. I mean, is he the lone roadblock? Everybody else seems to be afraid. Jerry, not so much.
Well, isn't that a metaphor for life? How many people do you know have the courage to do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, most people look at the election of Donald Trump. We learned afterwards that most people were afraid to admit that they were supporting Donald Trump because they were afraid of losing their jobs. And yet, there were enough of them that Trump won the election. Where I live in the Bay Area of California, especially in the Silicon Valley area, if you were to walk into your place of employment wearing a Make America Great Again hat, you'd be fired.
One way or another.
But the point is that most people don't have courage. Most people don't want to admit, unless they're on the left, of course, then they have no such inhibitions. Jerry Jones did something that is emblematic of a minority in this country, which is to proudly express his so-called controversial views. And so that's why he was the lone guy. I do not believe that Jerry Jones is the only one in the NFL who feels the way he does. I just think he's the only one who expressed it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. The others are all afraid.
Look at how many limousine liberals there are. Do you think deep down inside they're really liberals? Of course not, because they wouldn't be rich in socialistic countries. Capitalism enabled them to become rich.
See Colin Kaepernick.
Right, exactly. But because they want to ward off the torches and pitchforks crowd, they pretend to have socialist views. So if I say I'm for higher taxes, and if I say I believe in global warming, and if I say all of these other things, that I'm okay, I'm down with the kneeling in the NFL, then you won't key my car, you won't steal it, you won't kidnap my kids, you won't burn down my house. You'll think I'm cool. I'm one of those cool rich guys. But if you actually extol the virtues of capitalism, you're done. I mean, look what's happened to Ajit Pai, the FCC commissioner. He's getting death threats for ending net neutrality.
Mark, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you on the Super Bowl, what do you think will happen this year as far as ratings? I mean, the Super Bowl ratings, even though football's gone down a little bit the last 10 years and a lot this year during the season, do you think the Super Bowl will go down?
Well, I would think it has to. I mean, why would, unless, but of course, a lot of people watch the football, the Super Bowl just
the social.
So they can go to parties. So they can go to parties. And frankly, most people don't need much reason to party. So the answer is I don't know. But what I need to get across to your listeners is that what you see going on in the NFL management ranks, don't try this at home. Don't try this in your businesses. If you want your businesses to succeed, then you don't trash your own brand. You have to build your brand, and you have to protect your brand. And what is a brand? Your brand is your emotional connection with your customers. And if you damage that, then you're damaging yourself. So a brand is not a logo, a brand is not a website, a brand is not a product, a brand is not a company. A brand is a customer-validated value proposition. It sets the purpose and direction of your company. And when you trash that, you're going to crash. You're going to drift and you're going to crash. And that's what the NFL is doing. It's heading for that iceberg.
Brand is, go ahead.
And it is just illogical to me. So if you're running your own company or you're the CEO of somebody else's company, branding is your number one priority, and you're not going to learn this or have it reinforced by observing what the NFL is doing. Do the opposite of what the NFL is doing.
Brand is Destiny. The Ultimate Bottom Line is the book. Marc Rudov, our guest. Of course, you can find him and order the book at marcrudov.com. That's marcrudov.com. And we appreciate him joining us. And Mark, look forward to talking with you after the Super Bowl. We can kind of go over the ratings and the season and see what the NFL might need to do to correct their brand mistakes.
It will be interesting to see what happens, you're right, during the Super Bowl, because if the ratings hold, it's only because people are partying and they're doing more drinking and eating than watching the tube. But if they have the tube on in the house, that counts in the ratings. But it doesn't mean that they're actually watching it. So we'll see what happens.
Mark, appreciate you. marcrudov.com is website. We appreciate Mark. We'll take a break. We'll be back after these messages.